speaking about the concept that there is the difference between Chav Hei Elul and Rosh Hashanah, the day of Adam Rishon's birth, that the difference is that Chav Hei Elul, as great as it is in bringing the world into being, Yesh Ma'ayin, it has to do with Hashem's very essence, that is only the level of Kidmuseinu. That's the level that is in Hashem's likeness, meaning it is not the true revelation, whereas Adam Rishon is B'tzalmeinu and Kidmuseinu. That's not like the Chafei, which is Koi, only like Elikus, because it's watered down, it's through Seder Ishtalshlus, but rather we have the very essence of Hashem is manifest through the Adam Rishon engaging with the world, but he also has to engage with the world, not just be higher than the world. That's why by Adam Rishon it's B'tzalmeinu and Kidmuseinu. He has both the idea of being B'tselem in the form, in other words, identical to Hashem in that regard, versus also the level of Kidmuseinu that he has relates to the world. Like we also explained, that's why it says Nasa Adam, that Adam Rishon had to be made from all the koiches in the world together. All of these things had to be combined together because it was necessary that he has within him all the powers of the world, so he could be able to rule over them and to elevate them. So now we will continue further on page Yud Daled, page 10 of the Mimer, and we're going to continue in Ois Vav. The Rebbe in Ois Vav says all of this, the union of the world with higher than the world that Adam Rishon affects, needs to be first within the person himself, the union between these two different things. Line 16. To be able to affect this in the world, to make the joining between Hashem himself and with the world to make a dear lois barach, to make a home for the Eibishter. A person first has to affect this in the miniature world, in the minor world, which is the person. The person is called the minor world. Within himself. The idea behind this is the avoid of the person involves his inner koiches, meaning the levels of the koiches that are limited, like intellect and emotions. And he also has to work with his transcendent soul powers, like will, like the level of chaya, like we're going to talk about. Not only the close makif, like for example, the makif of chaya, for example, but even the distant makif, that has some type of connection with the inner soul powers, with the soul powers that permeates the person. Even more so, even concerning the essence of the soul, that's beyond even the transcendent soul powers. Though seemingly it's not applicable by the essence of the soul, it's how can a person do any avoida concerning that? Because it's possible that he doesn't know what level and what path they will be leading him, since he doesn't know the state and situation of his etzem, of his soul, like the story with Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, that he was crying when he was about to pass away because he doesn't know which way they're going to lead him. And Chassidus explains it's because he was worried about his etzem nefesh, that from the perspective of his etzem nefesh, he didn't know where it was at. So if Rabbi Yochanan didn't know, that seems to indicate that etzem nefesh, the essence of the soul, is something that's beyond our work. So the Rebbe continues, Mikal Makom still more Yeshal Zanesin, that's Koyach Mal Mile, top of page Kasvav. There's still an empowerment from above. That they can still, Hashem can decide and empower him to be in such a type of situation where even the essence of his soul will be revealed, and he'll know how to act in accordance with that. So that's the idea of the Tzalmeinu Kidmusenu together, the highest levels joining with the most practical. So he says in line 3, that's the idea of the Tzalmeinu Kidmusenu in our Avodah. When we talk about Tzalmeinu, we said Tselem. Tselem is the form itself, the thing itself, not just an image of it. So the essence of the soul is similar to the essence of above. Like it's known, the statement of our Rebbe, of the Friedrich Rebbe, in other words, on the pasuk, you are all standing today. That the very essence of an ordinary person down here below, of a simple person down here below, is a vessel to the essence of Hashem. The unadorned simplicity of the simple person is a vessel for that pure simplicity that transcends everything of Hashem. By using the word nitzavim, it means it is something that is done to us. That's what nifal means. Meaning that the fact that we are standing is not that we are doing the standing up, but we are being stood up. This is being done from above. That they place him in such a state that his essence of his soul be connected with the essence of above, like we mentioned before, about that the Tzalmeinu is even the Etzem HaNefesh, and even there where even Rabbi Yochanan cried, doesn't know, so Hashem is still going to help him with that. It says that you are standing before Avaya Lekechem. So what is the word lifnei? Jerome is ala pnimius ha'etzem d'avaya lekechem. Lifnei is from the word pnimius, meaning that you are standing has to do with the very essence, the innermost level of avaya lekechem. But that is all the level of B'Tzalmeinu. But we said that Adam Arishan is not just B'Tzalmeinu, but he has to have both together. It has to be B'Tzalmeinu and Kidmusenu. Omnam ha'avoidi laham shchus abchina de B'Tzalmeinu gam abchinas Kidmusenu. The avoid is to draw down the level of B'Tzalmeinu also into the level of Kidmusenu. Hainu, this means she'etzem ha'nefesh ikareinu de B'Tzalmeinu, the es of the soul, which is the primary level of B'Tzalmeinu. That is the tselem of the person, the way it's in his body. Yumshach gam the koiches hamakif. It should come down from the etzem into the transcendent soul powers. Vayodam, and through the transcendent soul powers, gam b'koiches hapanimim, also in the inner soul powers. Va'ad lebchinas haregel shubenefesh, until the level of the soul that's called the level of regel, that's only the foot. Like it's brought down with the Torah and the Mimer that we mentioned earlier. That he speaks about היום, כולכם, that he speaks about the unity of Klal Yisrael, and he gives an example that a person has a head and has a foot, that the head needs the foot to be able to accomplish certain things, and in that regard, the foot is considered a head for the head. But the main thing is, in what he's talking about over here is B'Tzalmeinu Kidmusenu, within every single person, means to join and bring together the highest most level of the Etzem HaNeshama all the way to the level of the regel of the foot and the nefesh. So now, the Rebbe is speaking now in the individual, and from that he spreads out to Klal Yisrael. Line 22. Just like there has to be the joining of in our form and in our image in the avoid of every single yid as an individual. Just like Adam Rishon had the joining of both together, that's why he was created in such a way of B'tzalmeinu Kid Museinu. So too it's concerning the general Klal Yisrael. The entire Klal Yisrael is considered like one entire stature of an entire person, an entire body. That's the idea that all of you are standing, meaning that is the state and situation that's a result and has to do with the essence of the soul, that from when you're looking from the perspective of the essence of the soul, then in this regard all Yidden are the same. B'tzalmeinu, you look at the level of how they are, B'tzalmeinu, the level of the Tzelem, the highest, most level, the Etzem. It comes down also in the level of Kid Museinu, the way every Yid is distinct and different. The specific levels of your heads and tribes until your wood choppers and water carriers. In other words, the pasuk begins with kולכם. Nečבים היום, כולכם. He doesn't have to enumerate all the rest because he already said kולכם. But that's the point. We start off with kולכם. We start off with the level of etzem where everybody is the same and equal. There's no distinction between them. Then we have to bring it down into the details of Klal Yisrael, the way every single Yid is something distinct and has his own role and his own mission. That this actually corresponds to the same thing like in Nefesh HaAdam. We have different distinct levels versus the etzem. Corresponding to all these different levels in Klal Yisrael, and Kol Protei HaKoyches are all the specific powers until we reach the lowest power by the Yid. It's a level of the water carriers. In such a manner, that the idea of all of you is in one continuation and one concept with the specific levels of the heads and until your water carriers. In other words, it's not two separate things. You don't have, okay, Nečבים Yem Kולכם, then you have Roshechem. No, it's one continuation because it's about this joining, just like we said, of B'tzalmeinu Kid Museinu. We have to join that essential unity of Klal Yisrael as we are all the same, and that manifests in the details of Klal Yisrael, the different specific Yidden. Zayin line 10. Every single year, everything returns to the way it was originally. Whether it's concerning the 25th of El, that was the date of the creation of the world. Whether concerning the 6th day of creation, that was the time when Adam was created. And like we said earlier in the Mimer, that on the first day of creation, it wasn't just creation. There was amazing things happening. Line 14, including all the levels and advantages that were only took place on the first day. So all of those are included and recollected even on Rosh Hashanah. Concerning all the great things that took place on the first day, on Rosh Hashanah, we commemorate even those great things that took place on the first day. That's why we don't just say, the day of Adam Rishon's creation is the beginning, but we said, Zikaron L'Yom Rishon. It's also recollecting and commemorating what took place in the first day, meaning what took place then on the 25th of El. What is the connection? Why on Rosh Hashanah are we remembering something that's seemingly unrelated to Rosh Hashanah? So the Rebbe says after the parentheses on line 16, that these aspects and these great qualities and advantages that took place on the 25th of El, like we spoke about earlier in the Mimer, the revelation of Hashem, not the revelation, but the manifestation of Hashem's essence and the creation of Yesh Ma'ayin and all the worlds, etc., etc. So that all these things is Noisim Koyach Gam B'Avodah Rosh Hashanah, also empowered Avodah of Rosh Hashanah. So now the Rebbe continues, all of this repeats itself every single year. But in every single year, this is in a much higher way than it was a year ago and the way it was in the first time in creation. Like it's explained in Tanya Negeres HaKodesh. What has been the pasuk that the eyes of Hashem Elokecha is on the land from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Should have said all the time. Why the beginning of the year to the end of the year? Because that duration is only how long the Chayes comes down. Every single year comes down and shines a new light. But that new light is it's a new and renewed light, Elyon Yoser, so much higher, that have never shown such a high light and such a high revelation. So now the Rebbe goes on to explain line 25. The idea behind this is every single year the world is created on the 25th of El. Just like the 25th of El, the first time around 5,786 years ago. Like it's explained in Chassidus, and we find something very interesting that emphasizes this recreation of the world on the same dates that the world was created initially. So we find there was a custom by some people. On the 25th of El, which was the first day of creation, they read what happened on the first day of creation. On the 26th of El, which is the second day of the creation, they read the parts from the Torah that had to do with the second day of creation. Until they came to Rosh Hashanah, then they read the part of the Torah and they studied the part of the Torah that speaks about the creation that took place on the sixth day. From the fact that they even expressed it by learning those things, from this we must say that it also repeats itself every single year, those very things that occurred. So we're learning because we are actually recalling or re-experiencing it. Therefore, just like at the beginning of creation, Adam Arishon revealed a core and primary thing of the entire creation. Should not be bread of shame, but rather it should be an avodah for the sake of above. In other words, like we said earlier, that Adam Arishon was not given things for free, not because Hashem was chas v'shalom stingy, or he was trying to save things up, but he wanted that Adam Arishon should not have bread of shame, an unearned type of avodah, and also because the avodah itself that we do matters to Hashem, and therefore this is something that Adam Arishon manifested in what he did. He also revealed this in all matters of the creation that were created in the days prior to that. In other words, he brought the concept of avodah into the world, not just for himself, but he brought everything else that preceded him into this paradigm of avodah. By saying to all the creations, come and let us bow down and kneel before Hashem, our Maker. So in other words, he took, let's say, the animals that were created prior to him, so those animals and those birds, etc., and everything else, and the sun, the moon, he took everything and brought it into his experience of avodah, of his chiddush of avodah. He even revealed this in the light that was created on the first day, with all the qualities that we said about the light that was created on the first day. That light Adam Rishon brought to its fruition. The purpose of that light is that through that light, a person, Adam, can look in it from one end to the other end. So in other words, from the end of the world to the other end of the world, meaning that Adam Rishon brings the purpose even to the highest of the creations, the idea of light. So that, just like it took place then, so it's to every single day, year, even prior to Rosh Hashanah, the day of the creation of Adam Rishon. Even on the 25th of El, the day that the world was created. There needs to be already the avodah of the Adam b'koyach atzmai. Even though we just now said that every single year it's repeated, but it's repeated after Adam Rishon was already created. So therefore, we're not just doing or recalling that the earth was created without man. No, we are recalling the creation of the light with the benefit of that Adam Rishon brought to it to show us that has to be in a way of avodah, etc., etc. And every single day is all about avodah, even though it is prior to the creation of Adam Rishon on the 6th day. In line 14, every single day in the Tosef is added even more so in the avodah of Hashem through the person down here below. Let's not forget, this mimer was said on the 25th of El. So the Rebbe was literally telling us what has to be our avodah starting the 25th of El. So the Rebbe was telling us that even on 25th of El, there's an avodah, because we're supposed to bring Adam Rishon's experience of what he elevated of the 25th of El. That's what we have to do now. Adam Rishon's elevation on the 25th of El. And every single day, there is another part of the world and another part of the world that's being elevated, like Adam Rishon did in the 6th day of creation. And all these matters becomes avodah in the way of standing fast. That Netzavim, as we know, that I've always says, shows that one is standing very strongly like a king. That's why it says Nitzav Melech. That nothing can move him from his place. Here's the pasuk that I just said. Until standing, not just stand strong, but standing strong with the full force and power, like a king stands for. That's strong, like Nitzavim is in the word, the pasuk Nitzav Melech, that it's like it's explained on Amar Chassidus in many places. And not only that, but we have this, like we said before, about the Tzalmeinu Kidmuseinu, in such a way, the Kulchem, that he joins through his avodah. He joins the essence of his nefesh, that's the idea of all of you, until the individual specific koiches, like we said, we have to take from the tzelem of the nefesh, the etzman of the nefesh, all the way to the koiches pnimim of the nefesh, the level kinmuseinu, ada koyach achitachten, until the lowest most koyach, the lowest most power that we said before, the level of the regel, that even the foot of the nefesh has to be joined with the etzem and nefesh. That's why the tzalmeinu kidmuseinu go together in the creation of Adam. Prate madregis, which this is indicated by specific levels of the pasuk, the Rashechem Shiftechem Ad Shemecha, from the heads and your tribes until your water carriers. The same thing, the Nefesh Adam, we have to take from the Etzma Nefesh and have it permeate all the way to the regel of the Nefesh, the leg of the Nefesh.